The sun hung low, its fiery orange glow bleeding across the horizon, casting an eerie glow on the desolate landscape. Lydia Vance trudged through the wreckage of the old world, her boots crunching on the brittle remains of what was once a thriving city. The air was thick with dust, a constant reminder that humanity had played its final hand in the game of survival. But Lydia was no stranger to this wasteland. She had survived long after others had perished, driven by something she couldn't quite explain, an undying need to atone for her failure. The wind whispered through the skeletal remains of buildings, their glass windows shattered, their steel beams twisted like the bones of ancient giants. A sense of quiet, unsettling anticipation hung in the air. Lydia's hand rested on the hilt of her dagger, the only weapon she had left from a past that seemed more like a dream than reality. The relic she sought was close, she could feel it. As she approached the ruins of an ancient library, a shiver ran down her spine. There was something about this place that made her skin crawl. Perhaps it was the way the shadows seemed to move on their own, or how the broken statues of forgotten gods seemed to watch her as she passed. But she couldn't afford to hesitate. The relic was near. She pushed open the rusted doors of the library, the hinges protesting with a screech that echoed through the empty halls. Dust filled the air, a reminder of how long it had been since anyone had dared to enter this place. The shelves were barren, books scattered across the floor in disarray, their pages torn and yellowed with age. But Lydia wasn't looking for books. She was searching for something far more dangerous, and far more powerful. She made her way to the back of the library, where a massive stone archway stood. A faded symbol was carved into the stone above it, a circle with jagged lines cutting through it like cracks in a shattered mirror. Lydia recognized it instantly, the mark of Baba Yaga. Her heart skipped a beat. Baba Yaga was a name whispered in fear, a legend long thought dead. The witch who had once ruled over the forests, commanding the beasts and elements to do her bidding, had been erased from history. Or so it was believed. But Lydia had found the traces, the clues hidden beneath layers of myth and time, and now she stood at the threshold of what could be the very tomb of the ancient being. Her breath caught in her throat as she stepped closer, her fingers brushing the cold stone. The moment her skin made contact, a low hum resonated from deep within the earth, vibrating through her bones. The ground trembled beneath her feet, and the wind outside picked up, howling like a pack of wolves. Lydia staggered back, eyes wide. The relic was here, hidden beneath the archway, but it was far more than she had ever anticipated. A voice echoed in her mind, a whisper, soft yet unyielding, like the rustling of leaves in a dark forest. "You've found me." Lydia's pulse quickened. The voice was unmistakable, unnerving, cold, and ancient. It was Baba Yaga's voice. She swallowed hard, her instincts screaming at her to turn and run. But she couldn't. She had come too far, and the truth was too close. "You've awoken what should never have been disturbed," the voice continued, as the ground shook once more. The stone archway before her began to crack, its surface splitting down the middle, revealing a dark abyss beyond. Lydia stepped forward, her heart pounding in her chest. She had to see it. She had to understand. There was no turning back now. She crossed the threshold into the darkness. The air grew colder as she descended into the bowels of the library, the hum of ancient magic growing louder with every step. The walls were covered in symbols, arcane glyphs that twisted and writhed as if alive. The deeper she went, the more the feeling of unease intensified, settling like a heavy weight on her shoulders. Then she saw it. At the far end of the chamber stood a stone pedestal, bathed in a pale, ghostly light. Upon it rested the relic, an ornate carved box, its surface etched with the same jagged lines as the symbol above the archway. Lydia approached cautiously, her breath shallow. She could feel the weight of it, even before she laid her hands on the cold surface. She hesitated for a moment, her mind racing. The box held power, dark power. But what if it was already too late? What if the witch had already returned? With a trembling hand, Lydia reached out and touched the box. The world exploded. A surge of energy shot through her, slamming into her chest like a tidal wave. Lydia gasped for air, her body shaking as she was flooded with memories that were not her own, visions of a time long past. She saw the ancient forest, the twisted trees, and the dark eyes of Baba Yaga herself, watching from the shadows. She saw the witch standing tall, her power unmatched, her wrath unstoppable. And then she saw herself, her grandmother, her family, all of them torn apart by the very force Lydia had sought to understand. The box cracked open, and a dark, swirling mist poured out, enveloping Lydia in its cold embrace. The whispers grew louder, filling her mind with a cacophony of voices. She could hear Baba Yaga laughing, a sound that echoed in her bones. "It's too late now, child," the voice whispered, but this time, there was no fear in it, only the certainty of something ancient and terrible that had been set in motion. Lydia stumbled backward, her legs giving way as the weight of the realization hit her. Baba Yaga was not dead. She was never dead. And now, she had returned. Lydia's breath came in shallow gasps, her chest tight from the suffocating dark mist that clung to her skin. Her hands trembled, her fingers numb from the icy chill of the air that now surrounded her. The box, the relic, what had it unleashed? Her mind raced to make sense of it, but the voice of Baba Yaga haunted her thoughts, echoing like a distant storm. The witch was alive, and Lydia had awakened her. There was no escaping it now. The dark mist hung heavy in the chamber, swirling like a living thing. The symbols on the walls seemed to pulse, flickering in the darkness as though they were trying to speak. Lydia stood frozen, unsure of what to do next. The ground trembled beneath her feet again, a low rumble that vibrated through her entire body. The very air seemed to be alive, as though the earth itself was waking up after centuries of slumber. Suddenly, the mist shifted, and a shape materialized in the gloom. It was tall, dark, and impossibly still. Lydia's heart skipped a beat as she realized what it was. The figure had no face, but she knew instinctively that it was one of Baba Yaga's servants, creatures birthed from the shadows, born of the witch's dark magic. It stepped forward, its movements slow and deliberate, its presence suffocating in its intensity. Lydia's instincts screamed at her to run, but her feet remained glued to the ground. She reached for the dagger at her side, but the weapon felt like nothing more than a child's toy in the face of the creature before her. "Are you here to finish what I started?" Lydia's voice was barely a whisper, but the question hung in the air, thick with the weight of dread. The creature did not answer. It simply stared at her with empty eyes, its long, skeletal fingers reaching toward her. The air between them seemed to grow colder with each passing second. "Do not be afraid, child," a voice echoed from the shadows, smooth and menacing. The voice wasn't the creature's, it was Baba Yaga's, unmistakable and all-consuming. Lydia's heart hammered in her chest as she spun around, but there was no one there. The voice was inside her mind, reverberating in every corner of her thoughts. "I have not come to destroy you. Not yet." Lydia's hands clenched around the hilt of her dagger, but she made no move. Her mind reeled, trying to grasp the reality of what was happening. She had always thought Baba Yaga was nothing more than a fairy tale, a myth passed down through the ages. But here, in this forsaken place, the witch's presence was as real as the blood pumping through Lydia's veins. "What do you want?" Lydia demanded, her voice steadier than she felt. The air hummed with Baba Yaga's laughter. "What do I want? I want nothing from you, child. You are simply a means to an end." The voice was laced with a cold amusement that sent a chill down Lydia's spine. The creature stepped closer, its presence suffocating. Lydia backed away, her mind reeling with the weight of what she had just awakened. She could feel the darkness closing in around her, the very walls of the library shifting as if to entrap her. The mist grew thicker, swirling around her legs like tendrils of a beast hunting its prey. "Why me?" Lydia asked, her voice shaking. "Why not anyone else? Why did you choose me?" Baba Yaga's voice seemed to soften, as though considering the question. "Because you are the one who failed me, child. You are the one who has always known about me and did nothing." The words hit Lydia like a slap. "I didn't know." "Didn't you?" Baba Yaga interrupted, the coldness of her words piercing Lydia's soul. "You have always known. The relic, the symbols, your grandmother's secrets, they were all meant for you. And now you will pay the price for your ignorance. Lydia's breath caught in her throat. Her grandmother's journals, she had thought they were just stories, scribblings meant to comfort a child. She had never believed them, never thought them true. But now, standing in the heart of this forgotten place, she understood. Her grandmother had known about the witch's return. She had known, and she had hidden the truth from Lydia, as though to protect her from the very fate she now faced. A voice, no longer Baba Yaga's, broke through the growing chaos. You have to leave. You cannot fight her alone. Lydia whirled, her hand instinctively going to her dagger, but what she saw stopped her in her tracks. A man, ragged, weathered, and with wild eyes, emerged from the shadows. His clothes were torn, his face covered in dirt and grime, but there was a glint of recognition in his eyes. You! Lydia gasped. You're the one who tried to warn me. The man nodded grimly. I tried to stop you. But now you've sealed us both. It's too late. He stepped forward, moving past Lydia with a sense of urgency. We need to go, he urged, his voice low and strained. The witch is awakening. And she won't be stopped until she's ready. Lydia didn't know what to think. The man had appeared out of nowhere, yet his words resonated with a truth she couldn't deny. Something was wrong here, far beyond what she could comprehend. And yet, there was no time to dwell on the mystery. A sudden crack split the air, followed by a sharp, guttural sound. Something had just broken, deep within the earth. She's awake now, the man whispered, his voice barely audible over the roar of the approaching storm. And the world will burn before she's finished. Lydia hesitated, her gaze flickering between the man and the mist that was now thickening around them. The creature had vanished, but she could still feel its presence lingering, watching. The walls of the chamber felt like they were closing in, and every instinct screamed at her to run. But run where? The man grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the exit. Trust me. The only chance you have is to get out of here, before it's too late. Lydia didn't know if she trusted him, but there was no other choice. She followed him, the weight of her failure pressing down on her chest with each step. There was no going back now. The witch had returned, and the world would never be the same again. Lydia's heart was hammering in her chest as she followed the man through the labyrinth of ancient hallways, the walls of the library trembling with each step they took. The air was heavy with a sense of impending doom, thick and suffocating. Every sound seemed to reverberate through the ruins, from their hurried footsteps to the low, distant growl of the earth shifting beneath them. The weight of Baba Yaga's presence pressed down on them, an invisible force that pulled at Lydia's very soul. You've made a grave mistake, the man muttered, his voice tight with urgency. His name was Torin, though Lydia wasn't sure if that was his true name, or just the one he had given her in his panic. He had appeared like a shadow, emerging from the fog when she thought she was alone. His face was wild, desperate, with eyes that flickered with fear, not just for himself, but for the world at large. I didn't mean to, Lydia whispered back, her words barely audible over the chaos that surrounded them. I didn't know. How could I have known? She was still in shock, grappling with the enormity of her actions. Torin shot her a sharp glance. It doesn't matter. What's done is done. Baba Yaga has risen. And now, she will come for us all. The words hit her like a punch to the gut. Baba Yaga, the name she had heard in whispers, the name that had haunted her childhood stories, the name that now seemed to be the cause of everything falling apart. She had awakened something ancient, something far older than her, older than civilization itself. Torin moved quickly, his steps echoing off the stone walls, dragging Lydia along in his wake. She's already out there, in the world. Her influence spreads like wildfire. And you, child, you've opened the door. You've let her out. Lydia clenched her jaw. She knew. She had felt it in the tremors, in the way the ground had shifted beneath her feet the moment she had opened that cursed box. But she couldn't let herself dwell on guilt, not now. What can we do? She asked, her voice shaking. Can't we stop her? Torin's laugh was bitter, filled with an edge of hopelessness. Stop her? There's no stopping Baba Yaga. Not anymore. She's more than a witch, more than just a force of nature. She's the Earth's reckoning, the embodiment of everything mankind has done wrong. She's here to undo it all. Lydia's thoughts spiraled. Baba Yaga's return was no mere supernatural event. She was tied to the land, to the very fabric of existence. But if Torin was right, then humanity was no more than a blip in the Earth's long history. And it was going to be wiped away as easily as a mistake. We have to try, Lydia said, her voice firm, despite the creeping dread. She wasn't ready to give up, not yet. We have to stop her. Torin shook his head, the desperation in his eyes becoming more apparent. You don't understand. She will not be stopped. And even if she could be... He stopped suddenly, his words catching in his throat. Lydia's gaze snapped to him, sensing the shift. What do you mean? She asked, but the words felt too heavy, too dangerous to be spoken aloud. She took a step toward him. What are you hiding? Torin met her gaze, and for a moment, Lydia saw something in his eyes that made her blood run cold. Fear. Raw, unfiltered fear. And a depth of sorrow so profound that it felt like a physical weight pressing down on her chest. She's not alone, he said softly. There's something worse. Something more powerful than even she is. Lydia froze. What? Torin took a deep breath. Baba Yaga is the catalyst. But there's something else, something ancient and even more dangerous than her. It's been waiting, buried beneath the earth for centuries. And now that she's awake, it's only a matter of time before it rises too. Lydia's mind raced. What could be worse than Baba Yaga herself? Hadn't the witch already brought about the end of humanity? What else could there be? We have to stop it then, Lydia said, her voice shaky but resolute. We have to stop them both. Torin looked away, his eyes clouded with regret. It's too late. The earth itself is waking up. There's nothing we can do. The words stung, more than Lydia cared to admit. She had never been one to back down from a fight, but the weight of this seemed insurmountable. How could she, one person, ever stand against such forces? And then she remembered the words Baba Yaga had spoken to her. You failed me, child. Lydia's stomach churned. Her grandmother's journals, the warnings she had ignored, the relics she had so carelessly opened, it was all connected. Her failure had led to this, to the world's destruction. What if we try something else? Lydia asked, her mind working faster now. What if we turn the tables? What if we use her own magic against her? Torin glanced at her, his expression skeptical, but there was a flicker of something in his eyes, hope, maybe, or the faintest possibility that there was still a chance. You think you can beat her at her own game? He asked, his voice low and doubtful. I have to try, Lydia said, her voice thick with emotion. She stepped forward, her hand resting on the relic in her bag. It pulsed with a faint, rhythmic hum, almost as if it was alive, and for the first time, Lydia felt a flicker of understanding. Torin watched her for a long moment, his gaze unreadable. Finally, he spoke. All right. If you're determined to try, then we need to find the old texts, the true magic that binds her. But be warned, playing with that kind of power is dangerous. It could destroy you. Lydia nodded, her resolve hardening. She had already destroyed everything. What did she have to lose? We'll find a way, she said quietly, the words more a promise to herself than to him. We'll stop her, before it's too late. Torin's expression softened, just for a moment. Then let's move quickly. The longer we wait, the closer she gets. With that, they turned toward the ancient vault where the real power lay, hidden beneath the layers of myth and time. The battle for humanity's survival was about to begin. The dark forest loomed ahead, a twisted and impenetrable mass of ancient trees. Their branches twisted toward the sky like skeletal hands, each one a dark omen. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and the wind carried whispers that seemed to seep directly into Lydia's mind. Torin's footsteps were quick and light as they navigated through the underbrush, his eyes darting nervously from side to side. He had led her here, to the heart of the forest, to the place where everything would either end or begin. Lydia's heart raced as she followed, her senses heightened. Baba Yaga's presence was palpable now, like a weight pressing down on everything around her. "Are we close?" Lydia asked, her voice low, barely above a whisper. Torin didn't answer right away. He only quickened his pace, pushing past the dense foliage. "Too close," he muttered, his voice strained. "If we don't hurry, it'll be over before we even have a chance." Lydia's eyes flickered to the relic in her bag. She could feel its pulse, beating in time with her own heart, like a living thing. Its power, Baba Yaga's power, flowed through her, a constant reminder of the danger they were facing. But Lydia couldn't afford to falter now. She had come too far. Suddenly, they broke through the underbrush and emerged into a clearing. At its center stood a massive stone circle, ancient and weathered by time. The air here was thick with magic, heavy with the same dark force that had consumed Lydia's every thought since she had uncovered the relic. This was the place where it would all come together, the place where Lydia would face the witch herself. Before Lydia could take a step forward, a voice echoed through the clearing, low and menacing. "Do you think you can stop me, child?" Lydia froze, her breath catching in her throat. The voice was unmistakable. Baba Yaga was here, and she was no longer just a whisper in the wind, she was real, and she was watching them. The air around them grew colder, and a gust of wind swept through the clearing, scattering leaves and debris. The sky above darkened as clouds gathered, swirling with unnatural speed. The ground trembled beneath their feet, and a low, guttural growl reverberated from deep within the earth. Torin reached for Lydia's arm, his grip firm. "Get ready," he whispered, his voice tight. "We don't have much time." Lydia nodded, her hand tightening around the relic in her bag. The power it held was a double-edged sword, dangerous, yes, but also their only hope. A figure stepped from the shadows at the edge of the clearing. Baba Yaga. She was no longer the myth she had once been, no longer a creature of stories. She was flesh and bone, her long, gnarled fingers brushing against the earth as she slowly approached. Her eyes, dark and empty, locked onto Lydia's with a chilling intensity. "You've come then." Baba Yaga's voice was a low, melodic purr. "Did you think you could stand against me? Did you believe the old magics could hold me back?" Lydia's breath caught in her throat. She could feel Baba Yaga's power radiating through the air, a force that threatened to crush her. She wasn't prepared for this, not for the weight of it, not for the darkness that poured from the witch's every pore. "I didn't come to fight you," Lydia said, her voice shaking, but her resolve firm. "I came to stop you." Baba Yaga's lips curled into a twisted smile. "Stop me? You are nothing but a child with broken dreams. You cannot undo what has already begun." Lydia's hand tightened around the relic, and for a moment she felt the pulse of its energy surge through her. The magic was alive, more alive than she had ever imagined. She could feel it thrumming in her veins, a power so ancient and raw that it threatened to consume her entirely. "Do you know what this is?" Lydia asked, lifting the relic from her bag. The symbols on its surface glowed faintly, their jagged lines shifting in the dim light. "This is the key. The key to stopping you." Baba Yaga's smile faltered for just a moment. Her eyes flickered to the relic, and for the briefest of seconds, Lydia saw something akin to fear in the witch's gaze. But it was gone before she could process it, replaced by the same cold, indifferent expression. "You are mistaken," Baba Yaga said, her voice now tinged with a faint trace of anger. "That relic was meant to awaken me, not to stop me. It is mine, and it always has been." Lydia's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't considered this, hadn't understood the true nature of the relic. But it didn't matter now. She had no choice but to press forward. With a deep breath, Lydia raised the relic high above her head, feeling its power surge to life beneath her fingertips. The air around her crackled with energy as the magic inside the relic stirred, as though responding to her command. "No!" Baba Yaga screeched, her eyes wide with fury. The earth beneath their feet shook violently as the witch raised her arms to the sky, calling upon the forces of nature. The wind howled, the trees groaned, and the sky crackled with lightning. But it was too late. The relic, bound to the earth and its ancient magics, had awoken fully. Lydia's body was flooded with its power, its warmth, its strength. The magic surged through her, and for the first time since she had uncovered it, she felt in control. She wasn't just the one who had unlocked this curse. She was the one who would seal it. With a cry, Lydia slammed the relic into the earth. The ground split open, a rift forming beneath Baba Yaga's feet. The witch screamed, her voice filled with rage and terror as the power of the relic consumed her. No! Baba Yaga's voice rang out in the air, but it was drowned by the roar of the earth itself. Lydia stood firm, her body shaking from the intensity of the magic coursing through her. She could feel Baba Yaga's presence trying to fight back, trying to claw her way free, but the power of the relic held her down, binding her to the earth. The ground trembled one final time, and with a deafening crack, the dark force that had been Baba Yaga crumbled into nothingness. The earth grew still again, the storm overhead dissipating as the last of the witch's power vanished into the void. Lydia fell to her knees, gasping for air, her body weak from the strain of wielding such immense power. Torin rushed to her side, his hands steady as he helped her up. "You did it," he said, his voice a mixture of awe and relief. Lydia nodded, still dazed. The relic was no longer pulsing with energy. It had become just a relic once again, its power spent. "The world is free," Lydia whispered, the weight of it all sinking in. "But at what cost?" The forest around them seemed to breathe a collective sigh of relief, the air lighter, the oppressive darkness lifting. But Lydia knew this was just the beginning. She had stopped one force of destruction, but there would always be more to face. She looked up at the sky, where the first light of dawn began to break through the clouds. There was hope yet. And for the first time in a long while, Lydia believed that maybe, just maybe, humanity could rebuild.